Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday. Whoa, that's a big gap down. Today is actually Wednesday. I'm just looking at the market open here. So I was thinking about, this is definitely post the Nvidia earnings. But this is a gap down. Yeah, this is why I didn't want to do that. This is from 93s to 80s. That was a fairly big gap down. Jesus. And they ticked the low. I'm not even gonna fool with that. But okay, so this is some of the shit that you have to deal with, all right, when you're trading futures. Okay, so we're not only doing our prep, but I just want to be real and transparent as well for you to see that, when you're actually doing your prep at night, you need to make sure that you're not entering trades as well. So regardless of whatever happens here, we will place no orders. Just want to make sure that's clear. So back to regular schedule. Let me pull up my Notion. So again, today is Wednesday. It is August 28th. It's the third day of a full week. Our goal here is to review today's market generated information in a holistic fashion. We're intimately following the auctions narrative for both ES and NQ. If we have time, we'll theorize and add additional commentary towards the end. We did not speculate in the morning today. We took a break, we put it on our community post. Want to make sure that we just actually relax and we came into NVIDIA fresh because that had the potential to change structure or change the narrative. We'll look in detail and see exactly what happened, and take it from there. Okay, perfect. So we'll start off with our typical process, and again, just bear with me if I feel a little distracted. I had in the past I would like just enter trades just at random, so just want to make sure that we're being consistent and trading within our A bracket and B bracket for RTH. All right, I digress. So we started our typical process by asking our summary questions. Where are we coming from? So again, if we look here at the daily candles, same situation. Bull flag is what we were dealing with. We ended up running into a bit of resistance up here, potential resistance, and we're starting to curve somewhat. So potential lower high from the all-time highs, and just even just breaking down from this July month, which was fairly tough for the market. There's a lot of anticipations that Nvidia was going to come in like Superman and break us to all-time highs. That was definitely a possibility, but it doesn't appear to be the case. Um, but I digress. So where are we coming from? We're coming from the lower end of this balanced range from the high of April 15th or the close of April 15th and this high on I believe this was a Thursday from last week, if I recall, or Wednesday. But anyways, so you can see our range here. So we're pretty much just balancing here. So we closed back into that range for yesterday for the Tuesday session. So really our goal was to build volume above this high point and stay within that box. We failed and we ended up almost testing the open, which is near the close of this impulsive candle from the 15th. So the goal for the NQ was to get back into this range, which is the 600s. 19,600s. We have our S&P 500. Sorry, I'm looking at the mini candles. Again, I'm working through this. Bear with me. So from our all-time highs, same situation here. They were a little more sturdier with their rise up and their balance that they formed. Their April 15th candle is actually this one. So you can just see how much more real estate they had to give up. And they almost touched it. They almost touched it. Pretty much got into more of this range up in here for the subsequent days. All right, sorry about that. I had to pause the video and take some breaths. I believe it's a possibility that we may drift up in there overnight, especially with the way price just traded towards the beginning. We had a fairly big gap down and we broke this low by what? Should be like 2 ticks. Okay, about a point. We broke this low about a point, and we're immediately thrusting back up. We're already up, 8 points. So a little above a solid rotation. All right, my apologies. So the goal here for ES, which is to stay above really this August 16th, which is exactly what they did. They did pierce that close, but they closed directly back into their range of the August 19th. So I mean, S&P 500 did their job. Yeah, there was some damage that was done. We ended up breaking this little low here. But overall, for the whole range from this 19th candle, they're still fairly much in it. So really not too much to say there. All right, so we'll look at the daily candles for the footprints and see if we can glean anything from there. We had 73 points of range. Volume definitely was increasing. Delta was increasing. So definitely some buyers were, definitely in there putting up a fight, which we'll look at this on the market profile and see how these two high volume nodes and this VPOC formed. Definitely a situation where support is turning into resistance, and then there's no kind of trading in here at all from these 56.35s to the 56.17s, which is exactly where that zone is from the 27s to the 17s that we've been talking about because we've been seeing these sellers. So without getting too speculative, I feel like a lot of sellers has just passively and aggressively just eaten up a lot of bids, a lot of buys in here, and we're just kind of running out of people to do business at this very moment, at least for today's action. So we'll look and see if there are singles within there, but definitely buyers tried to step up here near those 40s, which we have a relationship with. And then they tried to put up a little line of defense at these 10s. Sellers ended up meeting them and ended up forcing it down even more, but not too much more followed through past the 5600s, though we did test the 77 area. Let me trying to remove that candle. All right, bear with me. And then for the NASDAQ, I am glad I'm doing this. I can work on my patience overnight. Okay, so we have for the NASDAQ, who again was a bit weaker, down, the range was 400 points. And you can see where the selling the imbalances were really not too much for majority of the day, just quite even. They just kind of gave up towards these 500 and 600s. We ended up testing down lower, but the majority of the volume was found in this lower third range here. Just a night fight overall for these 400s. Looks like it's 420s. Take a peek at this S&P 500 again. Yeah, their volume was about that lower third to about that halfway point. All right, cool. So we'll check out the actual economic calendar and see, what we had on the docket today. Not too much, just the speakers. We're primarily looking for the earnings today. CrowdStrike, Salesforce, NVIDIA. And our video, we did record the last of Power Hour, so the final hour, and the NVIDIA earnings drop. And I mean, you can look at the action there, but I suggest you find like another source to look at the actual details of the aftermath from the data report. But okay, so we know we did like 70 points of range. We can see where everyone was interacting with each other. We'll look at the market profile next. But you can just look at this and see if you see anything that stands out. We've been talking about consumer discretionary and the technology sector for a while, of course. I want to see if it's Amazon or Tesla. Both of these were down fairly much for the day, about a 1.5%. And if we look at technology, this really should just be NVIDIA. That's down at 2%, and then Broadcom. So just chips as a whole. Same thing with Salesforce. So the only green would be financials and healthcare, which is nice. Our second and our third really held it down today. alongside utilities, which isn't the most heaviest weighted sector, but you can see more the defensive stance, even with consumer staples only been down 40 basis points. So, our bigger components outside of technology, financials, healthcare, industrials, they did a fairly good job today, and not the worst performance for the technology and discretionary sectors. Okay, so we'll look at this market profile. Let's look at the ES, who should be the ones that's a little more sturdier. Again, you can look at our month-end review, or prep rather, and then just even our homework to see some relationships with these levels. But primarily, you can see that the S&P 500 was just really trading in this high volume zone here. These 5630s, and 40s. We've been talking about these for a while. Just a lot of activity happening here. So as we had more of that activity towards the morning session, we ended up squeezing lower. Ended up failing. Oh wow, they tested this midpoint and rejected it to the tick. But it's the same selling zone that we've been seeing for a while with those initial sellers. Looks like they stepped it back in, or those buyers who absorbed those aggressive sales. Maybe they just decided to break even, offset their trade, who knows? But that was a clear rejection from there. And we made, apologies, we made lower highs and lower lows since that moment. So double distributed, majority of the volume is taking lower half, lower third, like we were saying. We do have some singles in here. Go ahead and get these added. This is 828. I mean, that's pretty much it. We end up putting this together. Not much has changed. So really, you're gonna put those together. You can see that we're looking at like this wider range. In here, all the volume. This is very reminiscent to the way down in July, where you were seeing some strong support ended up falling through and then turning into resistance. So it looks like we may start with maybe in that situation as well again. Because you can see some support zones here. We ended up filling it. Trying to find like the best way. Hopefully you can see, but just where my mouse is right here. So we ended up filling that zone and got rejected all the way past here. Though not much is traded under these 5580s. Just a little bit. So interesting structure, especially when it's compared to the composite. We have these two zones down here, here and here. These are just low volume zones within this composite. So, we may find our way kind of retract it down here and see if we do a little business. And that basically ended up being about where we stopped today, right before there. So I mean, overall, I mean, this is a decent job for the buyers on the S&P 500. I don't believe that was the case for NQ, but let's check. Same thing with the singles, though a little smaller. Just a little jagged edge here around those 400s. I mean, and really, it looks like we're just going to start building volume in these vacated spaces. And we talked about that before. So I mean, if they ended up getting below this area here near these 600s, they had those singles that was down here. We ended up cleaning those up. The singles that was left from, I don't know, it was like last week sometime. We ended up crashing through those, ate all those up, um, and then tried to bounce from there. So I mean, really at this point, we're just gonna it appears that we may be filling out those spots. So I mean, we can draw like another zone here just for our reference, but just really where it's empty. And again, it's not a science, more of an art. Then we'll draw the price levels and we'll do like a midline as well. So this would be the composite for August. Let's just call it it's gonna be just a big ass low volume node. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we can just see where those spaces are. And again, that's from the 310s to the 140s. So really not much has changed. We're gonna switch this from support to resistance. These singles have been eaten through as well. Oh no, those are the ones from today. My apologies. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. We'll switch this to a key zone here. This is from 2 weeks ago. Volume point of control, just another high volume node. And again, it's not a science, just an art. Okay. So that looks good there. So we have a good idea of what we're looking at. Let us look at the intraday, and then we'll check out the candles. All right, let's go to this intraday. Again, we have our 138 minute candles. So if you've been watching this, you can kind of see where we're at. It's that low volume zone that we were just looking at there. Just interesting to see. It's for the NQ. S&P 500. You can see they're a lot more sturdy. 65 minute for today. The rapid sell volume, all that volume done at the low, and the buyers could not push prices higher. Ended up finding our way back down, pushed even lower, but we ended up closing as doji, just with a lot of wick towards the bottom. But sellers couldn't get squeezed. They held their ground. So it's just interesting to see for the NQ. At this point, I'm sure you can see this is still a huge coil zone, and as much as you've heard me say, we break this and then we retest, and now we're failing. I mean, if we test this again, these five, basically let's just call it 600. If we test this 600 zone again, I mean, I really don't see a reason why this wouldn't be another retest and fail. But this is not the best structure for buyers. Even looking at this 3-day range here for the S&P 500, same situation here. Basically just a wedge. I think this is called a wedge. I don't like using trend lines, but it'll basically be something of that sort. So we're just gonna keep pinging off these. I'm curious to see how this overnight session will go. All right, so let's look at the 3-minute bars. We'll look at the S&P 500 overnight session. So I mean, let's see if we can just go back just a little bit. We have our Monday overnight, which is Sunday. Our down day. We ended up balancing for the overnight. We end up having a low to high day, balance from that high point, which is still within that low bear flag range. So again, nothing has changed. So depending on how you look at it, you can just say really just the bottom of this range in here. We kept poking above, failed. Poked above, failed. Buyers just said F it, closed under. We had our retest from the lows into that same zone and found our way lower. So again, that's from a higher standpoint. But if you look at the way they actually traded, because again, we didn't catch this in real time. S&P 500 straight coil from that overnight session. We broke below and really never looked back. If you look in the contents from the context of where we're coming from, once we broke that low, this is us falling into that range, really that low point of that range. And there was just no kind of support. So, I mean, we completely just got kicked out of that range. Hopefully you see that. So as we're at the bottom of that range, we're coiling sideways and still selling off. Try to go back above, thwart it, and then we find our way down, even to the point where we fucking just gap down X amount of points, you know? And that's for the S&P 500, who's the ones that's been a little more sturdy. Let's see if we can look at any kind of difference for the NQ Sunday, Monday sell-off. Using our new knowledge, let's draw this little bear flag zone. Popped above, end up liquidating this zone. And then as that was liquidated, we just bear flag again and then fail. I mean, we literally tried to test this range and then got rejected real smooth. So I mean, this is not a good look for the buyers. So on a higher time frame, this doesn't look as bad. But now that we looked a little deeper, I think this is a really bad showing with volume increasing as we saw. So, I'm not sure what to make of this. But just to, what? I'm not sure. That would be trading what I wanted to see, not what I'm seeing. Based off what we're seeing, this isn't really the best look for the buyers. So I think we may be getting into the situation where the same kind of price action on our way down. So if that's going to continue, I would assume that we're going to have yes. If this is the case, if this truly is going to turn into a different situation, there is no way in hell when we wake up tomorrow, when we're doing our prep, we should not see this. I probably can't go that far. Can't go that far, huh? Yeah. There's basically we don't want to see a drift up. If this happens, I think this is going to be invalidated. Yeah, I understand that we can kind of reach here and maybe, have like another low high, something along those sorts. That's fine and dandy. But this is really going to be like a real sell event. I think it's important for the sellers to actually start putting some pressure and blocking off. We really shouldn't get above. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give them any rules, but if we just look at this from a sell-off standpoint, from this high to low, they really don't want to see them get past this 5,600. Yeah, let's just call this 5,600. So if the sellers can hold the 5,600s overnight, I think that'd be a solid case. If the sellers for the NQ, if they can hold, let's call it from here, let's call it these 350s. If they can hold these 350s areas, then I think that'd be a fair case for the sellers. And then we can actually start doing our context from the seller standpoint opposed to the buyers. But nothing has changed. In my opinion, we are still bullish on a higher time frame. On the intermediate time frame, we're still bullish because I don't give a damn what I say, what I look. This speaks for itself. On the daily time frame, more on the shorter side, this is more balanced, favoring the bears, saving the favoring the sell side. And for the overnight session, we haven't had it. So, we'll be able to glean a little bit more. But tomorrow's definitely going to be a little interesting. Probably going to jump on, 5, 10 minutes earlier to see if we can really gauge what's going on. The overnight session is going to be absolutely critical for today. If there's more drift to the side with minimal upside, I think that's a big win for the Bears, especially with them being able to completely mute the Nvidia earnings. Oh man, that's a big deal. It's been so many people that has been expecting this. Like you know about the AI hype. So for them to be able to thwart that, cause a gap down, and bear flag into the overnight. Oh man, I think that'd be a very good case for the Bears. But if we do drift up in the morning, we'll consider this just more balance, and you want to be careful. But all right, I'll go ahead and stop there. Let me double check my notes. Yeah, I mean, we went over everything basically, lower highs and lower lows this entire time. Be careful. All right, take care.